the relationships we have, but giving us the power to stand on how we are related. And my information mostly comes from the People's Guide from Project 2025. This is a Democracy Forward presentation. I will leave a couple of these here. Sister Dawn has access to all of the information that I have, so she would be able to copy it and make it available to you guys. But we're going to watch, make sure my pointer works. Let's see what's happening here. It does. Okay, so this is for today. We go to the next slide, and I should be able to turn it on, and at the end, I'm going to go to the laptop and just see. Let's see whether we can actually get it done.
Can't see them back there.
Here. Okay, so.
No.
I can't sit here. Huh? Thank you.
So I had the video embedded into the PowerPoint, but we don't know if we're connected to the internet, so it isn't going to work. So I will keep on. I'm sorry. Okay, let's just keep on going. Okay, so that's the second. So here, my presentation goes straight through the Project 2025, which we just heard about, and that focus was about unions and other things that would negatively impact us. And I'll just go to the side here. So what Project 2025 will do is cut wages, create unsafe workplaces, and destabilize our economy. How would they do it? They would do it by cutting funding for local job creating programs and manipulating the data that businesses rely on to keep our economy function. All of those forms that we fill out and that businesses fill out, the government would then collect them as they normally do, and they would manipulate those forms to achieve specific ends so that they could control outcomes. How would their proposals would make it harder for Americans to make ends meet. How would they do that? Well, they would restrict access to food assistance and eliminate Head Start programs, which we heard about. Their proposals will make it, this is further how they will make it harder for Americans to make ends meet. They will limit which disabilities qualify for veterans benefits. So if there's a list now of 12 or 25, they would make the list 3 to 5. And then all the rest of the things that our people use as qualifiers wouldn't matter. How their proposal will restrict reproductive rights and access to health care. How would they do it? Keep the cost of life-saving medication too high, making your prescriptions outside of your ability to be able to purchase them. End medication abortion use and make it incredibly difficult for access. So for some medical care, particularly abortion, health care, they would make that out, put that out of your reach. Their proposals will again continue to restrict reproductive rights and access to health care. Have you heard of Advantage plans? Medicare Advantage plans?
Yes.
Yes.
Those are the plans they're pushing people toward, which are away from Medicare A, B, and C and D. And those programs trick you because those programs include A and B, which is what you get when you first get to Medicare. And then you have to decide whether you need C and D. Advantage programs all have A and B, and then some version of C and D. Turns out, when you get on those programs, there was a huge article in the New York Times just 2 weeks ago. Last year of life for Medicare people, they generally switch back to regular Medicare because the Advantage plans won't approve the health care that's needed when you're dying. So that's sort of a little smoke and mirrors, a little like. So we have their proposals will enable discrimination across society. How will they do it? Embolden racial discrimination in everything from housing to education to employment. How will they do it? They will make it harder for historically under-resourced communities to access Medicaid, Head Start, and other government programs. How will they continue doing it? Undermine gender equity across the government and allow discrimination against LGBTQ plus youth in adoption and foster care agencies. So oddly, these very Christian right people, these very Christian people will not allow LGBTQ plus people to adopt. And they won't classify LGBTQ kids so they can be adopted because they don't believe in the classification of any of those things. Only proscriptively, essentially, by your genitals. That tells them what kind of baby child person you are. Their proposals will make education unaffordable and unwelcoming. How will they do it? Cut federal loan programs that help parents of college students, graduate students, and immigrants afford higher education. Once again, making education available to those who couldn't afford it, not a right to achieve through public education or offering people opportunity to get access and for that access to be supported, and you pay those loans and grants back. How would they do it? They would make public schools even more dangerous for LGBTQ plus students. And that's just basically by denying that you can claim any of those identities, so you wouldn't be protected from people who mean you harm. You could call the police and they wouldn't respond because they don't believe they should have to respond. Their proposals will undermine government's ability to deliver for people. How do they do that? They intend to replace nonpartisan or career employees with new employees that are now qualifying for jobs. There is a Schedule F. They are vetting people for jobs, and they will go on a registry, and when they want to fire people, they will already have a register filled with names of people they can pick from and choose and put in the career jobs, because it is the career government employees, not the political appointees and the secretaries of the departments, that do the work for the American people of the departments, because they've been there for the numbers of years to be able to manage the programs and the resources of the government under whichever party is in power for the American people. So those people's jobs are now really at risk, career for service people. Therefore, people will undermine government's ability to deliver for people by administering ideologically based discriminatory tests for federal workers, and they will meddle with national security by altering security clearances. You've been hearing how literally none of President Trump's cabinet and appointees so far have undergone any vetting. And his intention is for them to be all appointed by recess appointment. Fortunately, right now, there are enough Democrat and Republican senators who believe in advice and consent, and they are not really feeling him about him being able to simply appoint an entire cabinet and all of the undersecretaries. So that wrestling match is yet to jump off. And that will be after he becomes president, because he can, there's an old law that allows the president to disband Congress, not take their jobs away, but essentially dismiss it. And that has been used during periods of wartime so that the Congress people could be where they belonged, where they lived, so that they could be running those places. And so they're imagining that if the Congress doesn't count out to him, that he will simply dismiss Congress, and then he will be able, by recess appointment, to fill his entire cabinet. Okay, so the threats, those were just the overview, big picture. The threats don't end there, and we heard more already about what some of the peculiar threats are that affect our community or people we know and love who have particular or certain kinds of jobs. This is a circumstance, what will happen with Project 2025. You all did hear during the last couple of months of the election period how President Trump and his supporters disavowed any knowledge of 2025, didn't you?
Yes.
They absolutely never heard of it.
Right.
He hadn't read it. He didn't intend to read it. There was some jack stuff in it, and so he wasn't going to be involved. I will share with you that Trump cabinet picks that have ties to Project 2025. So far, there are 8 senior appointees who are authors of various sections of Project 2025. This is the guy who didn't know nothing about it. So who those people are Brendan Carr, who's the FCC chair, Pete Hoekstra, U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Tom Honan, White House Board Czar, Caroline Levitt, White House Press Secretary, Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, John Ratcliffe, CIA Director, J.D. Vance, Vice President, and Russell Vaughn. He's going to head the Office of Management and Budget. What the Office of Management and Budget does is funds the government. So those are the names of the people who are authors of Project 2025, various sections who are senior administration officials in the Trump administration. So this is not misinformation. This is not disinformation. They were jack liars. He is now appointing people, and there will be more. The last thing that I'd like to do, I do have a handout for you, but I will also put it on the screen. This one doesn't require the internet access for us to go through it. So there's So this one is entitled Foundational Documents of the United States. The Declaration of Independence, the date on the Declaration of Independence is what date? July 4th, 1776. Okay, so you actually have your cheat sheet in front of you, those who have the cheat sheet. The Declaration of Independence states the principles on which our government and our identity as Americans are based. Unlike the other founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, did you all know this, is not legally binding. It is powerful though, but it was folks trying to get away from other folks who said, we're not gonna let you run us no more. That's all it is. We are sending you a letter saying, don't come for me unless I call you. That's the end of it. The preamble, so this is the preamble which many of us haven't heard since 8th grade or 11th grade. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now that says something, doesn't it? I mean, that's actually quite big. We come together to form a government, and when our government doesn't work for us, we get rid of that government and form another government. This is how you declare your independence. This is how you declare your sovereignty. This is how you claim your agency. You say, I'm going to be responsible for me, and I'm going to be responsible for me around the people and in the group of people that I live. The Constitution, let's look at that.
That's binding.
It says, we the people of the United States. So we had declared independence, we had given ourselves a name, and now we're going, here's how we are constituting ourselves, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That's another great big statement. That's another huge statement at the end. So that's the preamble. Then what did the Constitution do? The Constitution essentially acted like a colossal merger. There was a colony, there were colonies. We now call them states. And they all decided there's a good deal about what we will all do that's in common. But there is also individual stuff. So we are states, but we will call ourselves the United States. For certain issues we will do together, but most of the issues will be transacted in the states on behalf of the people who live there. So you can see why they started the Constitution with "we the people." And so you'll be able to read a little more than that. Look at the details. The United States Constitution was written in 1787. We declared independence in 1776. We wrote the Constitution in 1787. The Bill of Rights which were the first 10 things that the folks said, but these things are kind of out of balance in the Constitution. Let's straighten them out. That's what the Bill of Rights did. Stuff we left out of the Constitution, we now have to put into the Constitution, and they called them rights. We just left them out. So they worked on the Bill of Rights. It was ratified over the period from 1789 to 1791. The first Congress of the United States proposed 12 amendments to the Constitution. So 2 years after they wrote the Constitution, they already realized it was jacked. And we got to go back and put some things in, and that's what they did. The Bill of Rights was a response to the concerns to the Constitution's opponents, who feared that the Constitution would allow the central government to become tyrannical. So the people always wanted the power where they were, and that's in the states. So there is a little bit of a mismatch now, because we want the government to have a whole bunch of powers and convey a whole bunch of rights to everybody. And the Constitution was written explicitly opposite that. So that's what the tension is, always, because it's not in the Constitution for the government to be giving folks stuff. It's not there. And so we have to get that through the states and ratify it broadly. So you can look at that, turn the page. Those of you who are looking, let me go down on the thing if I can get down there. Okay, so Article 1 of the United States Constitution establishes the legislative branch of the federal government. Congress defines its powers. It's here, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, in reference to the House of Representatives and states collecting taxes, where the first reference to other persons, that's non-free people or slaves, as well as Indians, excluded, is mentioned. So very early, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. So I took out my piece of paper and I started writing my letter. And in my third sentence, I said, oh, them other people. Let me write them in here too. We were written into the Constitution as others. Not the ones for whom they claimed liberty was a right for all. Not the we the people, but others. Representatives, and it was in regard to collecting taxes. We need to understand how from the beginning we were chattel. This is important to know, so we always have agency to fight. We cannot get tired. We cannot recoil. We have to always fight because of who we are and how we are in the Constitution. It says, how we were defined, you see that highlighted, 3/5 of all other persons. So let me read that. Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons. So we got all the white people counted, including those bound to service for a term of years. So white people also had white people who were indentured servants, people who did not have full ownership, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. That's us. That's us. You can take, this is out of the Constitution. Reconstruction and Civil War amendments. So the Emancipation Proclamation, officially Proclamation 95, was a presidential proclamation, an executive order issued by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1, I'm sorry, it should have been 1863 during the American Civil War. The effect of which was changing the legal status of 3.5 million enslaved African Americans in the secessionist Confederate state from enslaved to free. So in the Confederate States, the Emancipation Proclamation was to give black people freedom. It was on June 19th, 1865, that Major General Gordon Granger ordered the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas at the end of the American Civil War. Juneteenth is what we call that. So you have June 19th, 1865, from January 1, 1863, it took 2 years for folks to tell black folks that you're free. So the 13th Amendment was proposed in 1864 and ratified in 1865, and it abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except for those convicted of a crime. So that's when the industrial prison complex started, in 1865. 14th Amendment, proposed in 1866 and ratified in 1868, addressed the citizenship rights and equal protection of the laws for all persons. And the 15th Amendment, proposed in 1869, ratified in 1870, prohibits discrimination in voting rights of the citizens on the basis of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments in 1864, 66, and 69 had to be reiterated in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Civil Rights Act of 1968, also known as the Fair Housing Act. So literally 100 years after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, we had to win our rights again. And we are at that precipice.
Again, yeah.
We're fighting for the same rights that were issued after the Declaration of Independence, after the Constitution. They went back and said, oops, let's give them other people some rights. And then 100 years later, for our civil rights period, we run those rights again. And in 2025, Project 2025, we stand to lose those rights all over. So this connection to history is what we must teach our young people, what we must remember in our civic organizations. Because to know this is to be empowered. You don't need no help. You don't need nobody to give you nothing. You go, well, wait a minute. This is about you. So I hope this brief kind of summary and connection has given you encouragement to continue to do the work you have. I apologize that I sound like somebody jacked up. But I hope what I've shared, and you can get all of this information from Ms. Dawn, the National Action Network people have this, and they can just email you the deck and these handouts. Yes, right there, sister.
Thank you. Yeah, my brother. Thank you very much.
Sorry. I said yes.
Okay, no, I didn't hear it because you spoke. In respect to the slave owners, how did they benefit from the Electoral College? Could you expound on that?
Essentially, they were the people who could vote. And the Electoral College, though we don't vote by popular vote, if those states' delegate votes went to whoever they chose, it's literally the same process. Remember, at this time, states were just coming on. There were 20 states, 21 states by the time of the Emancipation Proclamation. So it was the same, it was literally the same process, and they could really all do it when they came together at the constitutional congresses. There weren't so many people out in the hinterlands voting. And so when the white guys got together, they voted and did. And you can tell it by how the rules are written. Well, if we don't get this, then the House of Representatives do that. And if we don't get this, then the Congress does that. Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is that the electoral college, as it is presently situated today, adversely affects, well, black
It does, because it's
because of slavery. So that's
not because of slavery, but yes, it was instituted because the northern states didn't want the southern states, because of more people, to have more votes. The most of the slaves were in the southern states. So if each of the slaves had been made a person, there would have been more people, and slavery would have never stopped. The northern people did not want the southern states to be able to have more power. So let's take it from the people, let's give it to the electoral college, and then you have to win the electoral college.
And so that was the reason of us being designated as 3/5 of the person.
That was part of the reason. The real reason was, yes, they didn't think we were people. We can try to dress it all up all we want. They wanted us to be slaves. And so we were called other.
So this is what we're still dealing with today.
We are absolutely still dealing with it. But it is not. And in one way it is that clear. But so many things have happened that make us feel like that's not it. And there is a broader lens. Black people didn't vote.
Exactly.
I voted every time since I was 18 and I'm 65. So
Exactly.
I do get some rights. I do get to speak for myself. Yeah.
Can't hear you.
It was because of because of us that, slavery ended, because we ended up going to war. If we had not gone to war, we basically wouldn't have won. So my point is, okay, 1863, we were free. They didn't basically give us freedom to 1865. And then in 1865, why was, the owners basically given the land that basically rightfully should have went to us? I mean, I know that, but I just want to know.
Yes.
There really are so many trains of thinking. Even when we finally were given rights,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
we didn't have rights of ownership of land.
Right.
That's what fair housing is all about. Can you get an apartment? Can you buy a house in this neighborhood? So what accrued to white people did not accrue to, that's why we keep fighting for our rights over and over.
But then, like I said,
They were landowners, so we did not have rights to that land.
we weren't. So that's what I'm saying. Why would they be given anything? But we're the one that put our lives on the line.
Because they were
Well,
in
that's
charge.
a different conversation
They were
from a
in
point of
charge.
view. They claimed that they discovered America. That's why.
Right. It's called
Yeah.
white supremacy.
Come to the microphone to say whatever it is you'd like to say.
Okay, what about the mixed race of people? Like even with Spanish people, when we went to fill out the little circle, African American, but they didn't have that. They had black, Hispanic, they had black, Puerto Rican, and you circled it. Because I know most of my students or my colleagues or students, they circled them. And they put the circle white as they ethnic background. And what happens to people that are mixed color relationships or they're married to a white man
begin to
That's
make...
what I'm just asking, I'm just making a statement.
Yeah, okay, then I won't respond if that's a
Go
statement.
ahead, but you
No.
can answer it.
The answer is we determine race classifications through a contorted methodology. And the census people put them on the forms so that you can identify how you like. My birth certificate says I'm colored. So,
That's the black and white.
No.
Is that the black, wait, is that the black and white birth certificate that I still have, that it has black and white on it, or color? Because I
no,
have two. I have the one that's older that says black. It's a white thing, and it should be on here as colored or black.
on my birth certificate,
Because I have two.
oh, so
I have the old one and my new one.
I don't know, so I can't answer why you have, yours are different, because a birth certificate is a birth certificate. And you
Yeah,
get,
but they have the white one, the one that's black and white.
I'm not challenging you,
No,
Miss, I
I'm
am just saying,
making I have my black and white one. I'm gonna go back and look at it, and then I have the new one, and I'm gonna challenge it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to say that there was something that was missing because we must all, the president puts his hand on the Bible and there was a great flood and there was only 8 people and 2 were in North and South America, 2 in Africa, 2 in Asia, 2 in Europe, over there, okay? And George I over in Europe was German. And he started the word statistic comes from that word. When you do an experiment, you collect data and you plan it. But it was from what I said this morning, Mary had to go to Bethlehem because they were starting to... Wait, no, let me just, excuse me. The Native Americans were from Noah, and in 1066, they sailed with the Vikings from the House of Tudor. That's why Manhattan is the House of Tudor.
so we have to be respectful of different points of view, and we have to be respectful of people. Yeah.
Let me finish with what that's what the electoral college statistics.
Let her finish, let her finish.
I'm going to tell you, just look it up. My point is that this United States of America, when you have the Civil War, it was, so that was 1066, when the Native Americans, they studied the animals. They did not know about Jesus. They were from Noah, okay? They were pure. They did not know about the sins that we know, because it was from Noah, okay? And then in 1066, which was known as St. Patrick and St. Columbia, which was the 1st century, in the 11th century, they sailed here by accident. They didn't study the astronomy to make a chart. So they found them, and there was a marriage, okay? So I'm trying to tell
Let me just say this. Let's stick to the subject matter, which is Project 2025. And we've been
I'm
thrown...
impersonating is England's Elizabeth.
Wait. We're being a little thrown off because the way this was supposed to go, all the presenters were supposed to present, then Herman was going to get up and do question and answer. What you're speaking about, we're going to do that type of forum in February. Okay, but today we're sticking to Electoral College and Project 2025. All right?
But that's what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, I don't hear you saying anything about
There's a
that.
mistake in your paper.
Okay.
No white man, all men who create evil. That's it. That's it. Mistake. The 3 people who share the money, it's over.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Okay, we're going to go back to our presenter. then we're going to bring up our next speaker, Stacy Bell, to speak to us about genealogy, because that's initially what this program was supposed to be today. But I thought it was important that we have a post-dialogue election. And as one of the ladies in the audience said, we should have been doing this before, but we were too busy out in the street. So I wanted to get this done before our next election cycle. So let's have our presenter do closing, and let's then bring up Stacy Bell.
One question, please.
Quickly,
Turn the lights on. 2025. I was listening to a radio show a couple months ago, came up Project 25. A representative from the Heritage Foundation, with a number of people that I know about, was conservative think tank. They claimed they were sponsors of Project 2025, and from the way they were speaking, there was a clear direct link to the incoming president, even though the incoming president now. Well, it is over 900 pages, and what they were talking about was elimination of the federal contribution to public education.
That is
The Heritage Foundation.
Exactly, sir. You're exactly right. I said that at the beginning, and I think you mentioned it as well.
Yes.
And that was the 8 people who wrote Project 2025 are all employees of the Heritage Foundation. So you're exactly right. The point you're making, we took and included in what we said.
Thank you.
Turn the lights on.
So thank you guys. Did you all get anything out of this? Ask Ms. Vaughn for these documents. She can email them to you. You all take the handouts, and she has the deck as well, so you all will have the resources to share in your communities and to push out as the civics lesson is something that I think matters to us, so we can connect ourselves to Project 2025 from our foundational documents. Thank you.
Thank you again, Brother Ronald Smith. At this time, I'm going to bring up our own Brenda Ricketts. You know that this topic is near and dear to her heart. At almost most of our What's on Your Mind segment, this is something she speaks about. So we would like to bring her up at this time to introduce our guest speaker, Stacy Bell.
Okay, good afternoon, National Action Network. I would like to introduce Stacy Bell, the president of the Gene Sampson Scott Greater New York chapter of the African American Historical and Genealogical Society.
Yes.
Ms. Bell has helped me to elevate my genealogical research by showing me how to organize my efforts and to stay focused. I've been working on my family's history since I was 17, and I joined the African American Historical and Genealogical Society 2 years ago. Since I became a member, I have made contact with the descendants of the family that once owned my ancestors. Through learning about resources provided by Ms. Bell, I was also able to reach out to a missing branch of my family tree. Please welcome Ms. Bell and give her your full attention. What she has to say will have a profound effect on you.
Thank you, Miss Brenda. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So before you get to ask me questions, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. By a show of hands, show me who in this room had a favorite subject in school and it was history. History? No, history? That's a pretty good number. Usually in a room this size, you might get 2 people. And why do we think that is? That's because it's his story, right? Our story is our story to tell. And too often, when we're told those stories in school, they're not told in a way that is indicative of our experiences and the experience of our ancestors. I'm going to read this just because I want to make sure that I hit all of these points, and then we're going to move on really quickly. I'm going to try to pull together a lot of the what the other speakers said and how it's relevant to your family history and to what I say is that R word, reparations. You need receipts, right? You need proof for everything. So, as I said, our history is our history to tell. For far too long, the narratives of Black history have been shaped, altered, and even silenced by those outside of our community. The result has often been an incomplete or distorted picture of our past, one that fails to honor the depth, resilience, and richness of our experiences. But as the stewards of our culture, we hold the power to reclaim and preserve those stories. So how did I become interested in genealogy? I used to get sent down South Carolina, every summer, the day that school let out. Either my grandparents would come up and get us, or we got put on Amtrak and got sent down. When I arrived this particular summer, after having watched the series Roots, I told my grandmother, I'm like, Grandma, I want to find the Kunta Kinte in our family. And she was like, I don't know about Kunta Kinte, but you can go ask cousin Cora what she can see, what she can tell you. Well, I did. I went and I spoke with my cousin Cora, who at that time, and we're talking 1976. So at that time, cousin Cora, who was born in the 1890s, which I didn't recognize at that point, I sat with her, and I sat with her every single day, and she would tell me about our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents. So by the time I went off to college at the University of South Carolina, I had already had basically everything mapped out for me. But all of this was oral history, right? Oral history is something that's important in our families. And it takes more credence than in other ethnicities. Why? Because we were a people who were enslaved. And I'm using the term enslaved because words have power. We were not slaves, our ancestors were not slaves. They were enslaved, right? The people that enslaved our ancestors were not owners. Nobody owned them. They were enslavers. I remember, being at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. I went to a wedding. It was the wedding of one of my roommates' cousins or whatever. And it was on this place that was called a plantation. It was par for the course at that time. This is the 80s, right? You go to weddings and they're on these plantations. But the plantations, we're not calling them that anymore. It's an enslaved work camp or a forced labor camp. We have to call these things by what they are. We see things like fugitive slave ads. These people are freedom seekers. And if you go to the website that was referenced, I guess he left by the previous guest, National Archives Record Administration, it gives you those terms now. They've already incorporated these terms that are more sensitive to our experience into the government records. Don't know how long they'll be there, but they're there right now. So what we have to charge each other with is that we tell these stories, that we find out who our grandparents were. The records are there. They often tell us that, oh, there are no records for our people. But it's not true. It is absolutely not true. We have to be more creative in where we look for our people because, as the previous speaker said, we were considered 3/5 of people, so we were property. So no, we may not look for that birth certificate, whether it's black and white or the one with the green with the seal on it. We have to look in property records. We have to look in the records of the people who enslaved us. The records are there. The records are there for the people who fought in every war for this country that looked like the people in this room. There were 185,000 United States colored troops that fought in the Civil War. 185,000. Those records are at the National Archives and Record Administration. For how long? We don't know. But the good thing is, there are places that have digitized these records. There's a church group out in Utah because it's part of their faith, they have digitized almost every record of every people all over the world. And you have access to this. I won't say it's free, because if something is free, what's the commodity? The commodity is usually you and the information that you're giving them. But you have access to these records, and it's incumbent upon us to start documenting so that we can pass this information on to the next generation. We spoke about the Electoral College. There's something pivotal that happened in this country in 1876. I always say past is prologue. Why? Because the election of 2020, it happened before. It happened in 1876. In South Carolina, in particular, Edgefield County, they called it the Hampton election. There were these people running around, and they called themselves the Red Shirts. They were the predecessors of the KKK. What did they do? Samuel Tilden, who was the governor of New York State, was running for president, and he was running for president against Rutherford B. Hayes. The Electoral College, as the sister said, she explained how it worked, right? So what happened? It was the period after Election Day, but before January 6th, that Rutherford B. Hayes realized that he wasn't going to get enough electoral votes unless they switched electors and they sent fake electors to Washington, D.C. So he goes to Governor Wade Hampton in South Carolina, and mind you, we have the right to vote in South Carolina. We have, I guarantee you, if you have an ancestor from anywhere in the South, you have an ancestor that may have served in a town council or that may have served in the United States Congress in the 1860s. South Carolina, being a state that was majority people of African American descent, we had most of the political representatives were people that looked like us. So Rutherford B. Hayes got a hold of Wade Hampton and said, listen, if you throw me your electoral votes, doesn't matter what the people voted for, I'm going to send the set of electors to Washington on January 6th that I want to send, so that Rutherford B. Hayes can become president. And Rutherford B. Hayes said to them, okay, if you do that, I'll pull the federal troops out of South Carolina. And why was that so critical at that time? During Reconstruction, we had the right to vote. We had banks, we had insurance companies, we were, according to some, if you compared us to other immigrant groups at the time, we were doing better financially and educationally when you do a comparison. So if they send the federal troops back to Washington, D.C., or if they pull them out of South Carolina, what happens? In comes Jim Crow. So Rutherford B. Hayes, he stole the election. He did what the other one tried to do on June 6, 2020. So history, again, it places us in it, and in particularly, it places our personal histories in it. So why was that particular election so pivotal in my family? And this is how I found so much information. Because Wade Hampton was successful at stealing the electors, sending the false electors to Washington, D.C., so that Rutherford B. Hayes, instead of Samuel Tilden, could become president, my family had to leave. They had to flee South Carolina because they were town commissioners. We have one ancestor who actually served in the state assembly. They couldn't stay there. They picked up and they left, and that changed the trajectory for the family. The lands that they'd gotten as part of the Southern Claims Commission, taken away from them. Lots of families had to pick up and leave. How did your family end up in New York? These documents are there. I've already spoken with Dawn about giving a full seminar, perhaps at some time in the future, to show you how to get those documents. If your family wasn't from here, if your family was from the West Indies, if you fought for the British, those documents are there. We have to start showing receipts, documenting our families, showing that they are an integral part. They are what America was built on, right? It's a stolen land, a stolen people, but the records are there to document it. I'm going to end there, so I know we have another. Thank you. And we have some, there are pedigree charts, there are family group sheets that we can leave behind for you to start documenting if only you have the names of your grandparents, your great-grandparents, write that down for your children, your nieces, your grandchildren, and for the other people in your family. We can start there. That will take you to where Miss Brenda went. She's just found a wealth of information. Once you find one document, it leads you to the next. So everyone in here can do what Miss Brenda did, what I did, and what I've done for so many other families, and it's up to you to do the research and pass the information along. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, hey, hey.
Thank you, Stacy Bell. What I loved about her is when I was speaking on the phone, she said, I'm willing to come back before she even came. So we will have her come back in February when we do our forum with the men's committee. We have to do a follow-up forum on reparations. But now we've saved the best speaker for last. That's Terry Wisdom. She's the editor and CEO of Harlem Network News. She's going to speak to us of the aftermath of the elections and tribute to Shirley Chisholm. And you know, as today is her 100th birthday, how many of you have been to my birthday parties? I see Otissa, Kathy used to come, Dominique used to come, but Dominique Sharpton was at my 50th birthday party, and Terry was the owner of Besame Restaurant here in Harlem, located at 124th and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard, along with her partner, Mr. Ruby, and they have coffee in the back as well as they have a table. But she is now Harlem Network News, where I've been interviewed, and as I stated, she will be speaking to us about an overview of the Electoral College and a tribute to Shirley Chisholm. Please draw your attention to Ms. Wisdom.
As Dawn gave an incredible intro, I'm Terry Wisdom, and as many of you know, Harlem Network News is a new media platform. But I also want to just say that I know that I am standing in sacred ground right here in this National Action Network. I was here for Thanksgiving. And with everything that is going on, the election, the economic conditions in our community, when I woke up on Thanksgiving morning, I just felt some kind of way. And as we know, we are doing our own Thanksgiving, but at the same point, we know what Thanksgiving was for the Native American people. And that after they had helped the people, I think it was in 1621, through a hard winter, like probably, I don't know if it was then, but just going forward, 12 million Native Americans were slaughtered. And so that might have been part of why I was feeling the way I feel. I do have Cherokee in my family. So it could have been that, but it was all the things that we're really dealing with. But I want to say when I came to National Action Network and the house was full and the people were eating, and I was, you know, just doing videos, and it was just such a receptive thing. My whole spirit was totally lifted. So that's what's happening here. And just as a point, you know, when you think of like giving out food to the hungry, and you go down to the Bowery, and no shade on that, but it might be like homeless people that, you know, don't have a place to live or sleeping in a box. But when we came here on Thanksgiving, it was the community of Harlem. It was, and when I say Harlem, as many of you know, I speak of Harlem and the Harlems of the world. So that's everybody that's dealing with what we're dealing with. But it was just our regular people that were here getting a meal, enjoying, communing, sitting down, or taking a meal home. But it's endemic of what is going on in our community. We have food insecurity. So we have to keep it real. You might not be able to see it, you know, because we done dressed up, We put ourselves together. As my mother always said, you got a needle and thread and some soap and water. You know, you can come out and look a certain kind of way. But behind those closed doors, we have food insecurity. So that is just a very real factor. And we started Harlem Network News. My background is in film and television. For years, I've worked at all of the networks, but I was being encouraged by my partner, Mr. Ruby, who is doing the Harlem Coffee, New Harlem Coffee, which is one of our sponsors and helps us to be able to do what we do. But it was kind of like he's been encouraging me to start this network. But, you know, you're thinking, I need this ready, I need that ready, I gotta do the other, you know. But fortunately, COVID did a lot of things. It took the scab off the wound for what's really going on for Black people. It also made us all get our PhD in technology so that we could get on Zoom. And being a film person and a video person, because of this technology, it makes it so that you could actually do a show without having to rent a camera and have 10 people with you and so on and so forth. So that part is the blessing in terms of getting out the vital news and information to our community. But when we started Harlem Network News, a great part of it was us having to jump in the deep water because Black people were walking around Harlem and they were saying, I'm Black, I can't get it. And they were thinking that COVID was something that Black people don't get. Now we know there are certain diseases and, you know, ailments that only come to a person of color. You know, be it, you know, for the most part, like a sickle cell or something like that. But once we saw that, that's when I said, okay, I gotta jump in the deep water. No matter how I do it, I have to do it because people are not being informed. A part of it is they're not seeing themselves on mainstream media. So we need to get there, get the Black doctors to come on, get the clergy, get the public officials to come and talk to the people with some trusted information. But by that time, we had the body bags coming out. So that is really where we started, and we are still here. Thank you all so much for really sitting through a lot of this information. What we had today is some vital information. And because of how media is right now, like we usually are getting like a 2-minute soundbite, and then we don't really know what happened, or we're getting, like some of our young people, something on TikTok, and people are unclear as to what has happened, what's not happening. Media is driving the train. But the fact that we were patient through this information says a lot about who we are, and that's what we're going to have to do. You're going to have to be patient through the information so you can shuffle through it. So I'm going to commend you for that. Before I really totally go, and I'm going to try to move as quickly as I can, and I got a lot of weight on me because now Dawn made me last, so I gotta bring the clothes. But I just want to salute our ancestors, and I want to salute all of our ancestors, all our relations, but I want to salute some ancestors that we lost within this week. There's a sister, her name is Diva Gray. She comes out of New York. She was in the Rose. She has red hair. She sang jingles. We lost her. We lost a grandmother on the Shinnecock Reservation on Thanksgiving. And I have a connection to there. If you don't know, the Shinnecock Reservation is in Southampton, and many of the people who are Shinnecock and African American, and that comes down to them really helping a lot of the enslaved people. The Amistad boat docked in Montauk Point. So I just want to pay homage to that mother, grandmother, rock of her family, and that is in the person of Donna Quinn Aliza, who transitioned on Thanksgiving Day. I also want to pay tribute to one of our Harlem own who transitioned yesterday, and that is in the person of Peter Westbrook. Peter Westbrook is a fencer. He won a bronze gold medal, 3rd place. He started the Peter Westbrook Foundation. He brought fencing to Harlem. He's had several young black men and women go to the Olympics. Akhenaten Spencer Ill, who is Harlem's own, went to the Olympics back when it was in China. He was also the head coach for the saber fencing team in this election. And I want to say that because you didn't see Akhenaten Spencer Ill on television. He wasn't getting blasted, you know, and I'm saying no shade to, you know, all, you know, Snoop and everybody else that was getting the blast, Flavor Flav, no shade to them, but media is the message, you know, and we didn't hear about Akhenaten Spencer Ill, who is from Harlem. You know, we also, out of that Peter Westbrook Foundation, the young sister who I believe took the 1st place came from him. He is also a deacon at the Abyssinian Baptist Church. And he comes out of Newark, New Jersey, out of the projects. He's black and Japanese, and he transitioned yesterday. So we gotta know who our people are and what our people are doing, and I know that they are all in heaven, and they're watching over us, and they're guiding us. So I didn't want to move forward without sharing and stating that. And as I'm talking about ancestors, it's a minute, but my own son, Ali Sam Wayman Wisdom, he was shot, Columba the Shining Star, he was shot and killed on the Shinnecock Reservation 3 years ago on November 5th, 2021. There has yet to be any movement on who did this, because when black people are, you know, shot and killed, there's not a lot to find them, and because it's on a reservation, only the state police can go on. So we have a lot to deal with in our community. Fortunately, I'm able to, I have to take this pain and do what I do with it. I'm a member of Harlem Mothers and Fathers Save, a very dynamic institution. Thank you to Jackie Rowe Adams, the founder, who lost 2 sons to gun violence. So this is common, unfortunately, in our community, as is incarceration. But, you know, I just want to say I've been on this path, I've been on this journey for a long time. Since I was in high school, I was an activist. I went to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Gil Scott-Heron was my classmate. Revolution will not be televised. And a friend. And at that time, I was doing revolutionary poetry. I left, went to Fordham University so that I could really do this media, you know, did WNET Film and Television Training School. So this has really been quite a life journey. But I want to start, before I get to the post-election, I just want us to know, and I don't assume, especially in media, that everybody knows everything, because, you know, if you walk down the street and you're asking people, I'm in the school, so I know there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we have to know. And it's okay if we don't know. because if we can ask the questions, we can find out. But today was declared by our city council as Shirley Chisholm Day. All right? Shirley Chisholm Day. And today is her 100th birthday. So that is a very, 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 very powerful thing. They actually, I think they renovated the Shirley Chisholm State Office building that is in Brooklyn. So that's a piece of information, and mainstream media did tell us about that. And that is where the office of Tish James is, and several other, children's services, a lot of other important parts of the city and the state are there. So I just think that in the wake of, and Shirley Chisholm was the first Black woman, but really put it on woman, to run for president in 1972 and try to get in on the Democratic Party. So she was indeed a powerhouse. After her came Jesse Jackson, I believe it's in 1988. Yep. So we have to salute her because she stood up. She was elected to Congress 7 times. 7 times. So there's also an exhibit right now at the Museum of New York City. Right now, you can go there and you can see it, and you should. You should take your children so that we can get more information about this powerful woman. And she, through this whole election with Kamala Harris, really Shirley Chisholm was speaking in my ear, because Harlem Network News, we were at the Democratic convention. But if you understand what's really happening with media, with the campaign, there was no financing for grassroots media, or for the most part for Black media, from the campaign funds. So most of us had to get there, we had to pay our way, we had to find a place to stay, we had to do a lot. We had to eat, and I know that it's not only me, because I convened with many Black press across the country that I met when I was there. We also, in some instances, did not have full access, which meant we could not get on the floor where everything was going on all the time. Sometimes we were up in the rafters. But for me, I kept hearing Shirley Chisholm saying, get your seat at the table. Bring your folding chair. That's right. So I was there. I'm still recovering from financing my organization to go. But I hear her in my ear, stand up. There's some other quotes of Shirley Chisholm. I'm trying to find it, but basically that is the one that stands out for me. And that's how I'm walking. That's how we have to walk. I'm going to get to the post-election, but we have to understand, and I don't think it, we were devastated, and, we were thinking, oh, after going to the convention, because the convention was fabulous. It was one of the best conventions we've ever had. And if you do not know, there are 3 Black women that put that convention together, and they knocked it out of the park. Mignon Moore, Donna Brazile, Christina Q. Those are some bad sisters. And I do production. I didn't see any gaps. I didn't see a delay when one person went from the other. there was, it was really a powerful day. And that was us that did that. But even with that, there's something to be said, in terms of the distribution of funds and economics. We gotta say that all day long. We gotta speak the truth to power. We are not okay. And once again, coming to the National Action Network, I believe it was last Saturday, and we had our city controller here and spoke about the mean income in New York. And I believe it was New York State, because I want to give a hand clap, because I reached out to his press person yesterday. He gave me the information when I was here for Thanksgiving, and she literally sent me all of the data on the situation of economics in New York City, also other information. So I have that, I'll send it to people, because he basically was saying that the mean income for blacks in New York, and I believe it's New York State, is approximately $19,000. The mean income for whites in New York State is $200,000. So when you understand, and that's why I said, let me call and get the facts. Let me get the data, because this sounds crazy, but this is the reality of the world that we're living in. So if you don't have money to get to work, if you don't have groceries, if you can't pay your rent, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling sad, if you're figuring, I don't know how I'm going to do this, this is the reality of what we are dealing with. So I'm going to preface the post-election with us basically making sure that we understand the world that we live in. I also want to say the day after the election, Elon Musk was about, and I might not have the exact right number, but I believe it's $30 billion richer. That was the day after the election. So we have to understand that this election, part of it's about 2025, part of it's about democracy, it's about all of those things, but it was really about money.
That's it.
It's about money.
That's
These
it.
people want to make sure that they control the money.
That's it.
The other economic fact is when we get our check, and you look at the breakdown of your check, even though if you're working, they are taking 38% of your check in taxes from the city, the state, the Social Security is 38%. And your check might not be a lot anyway. So this is some of the weight that we as a people are carrying. And if we made over $500,000, they'd be taking 8%. So this is what, we have to keep our eye on the prize. And I feel, in a sense, I'm a member of Win with Black Women. And I've been a member of Win with Black Women for 4 years. And not just when the 40,000 people came on. I've been on it for 4 years. And I got on it when I interviewed, some people from one of the sororities, the AKAs that Kamala Harris is a part of. And from that time, we have met consistently, which is why when Kamala Harris was taken over to be nominated, that we were able to move so quickly, because we were having a meeting anyway. So we just shifted it, and this is what it was. And you know how the drumbeat goes in our community, especially with the sisters. In 2 hours, there was 40,000 people on the call. So that's how we can roll. However, I think it's really important that we look at and we realize the world that we're in. And I think that we were very excited, we were very elated that a black woman was running for president. And also, given all of the 2025 and some of the things that the president now elect was talking about, we knew how critical it was to vote. And we also recognized from that we all have different needs. Because if you had the Win with Black Women, you had the, you know, the white women for who, the dudes for this, the Broadway stars, there are groups with different needs, and that's okay. What we need here in Harlem is not the same thing that they need on the East Side. So it is very important that groups are represented and understand what different groups need. But I think that we kind of had a little smokescreen because everybody was really thinking that she was going to win. We also didn't understand the dynamics, the economics of it, basically what was going on with the press. Black media does, we used to have Ebony, Jet, this, BET, all of that. We don't have that. So our messaging does not get out. And if you understand the dynamics of advertising, basically everybody, there may be black content, but it's not black owned. So when you take your eyes to Tubi, which basically Tubi is owned by Fox, in case you did not know, when you take your eyes there, Tubi gets the dollars. When you take your eyes to BET, which is not black owned, they get the advertising dollars. When you take your eyes to OWN, and I'm not saying don't take your eyes there, but when you take your eyes to OWN, they're getting the advertising dollars, okay? We're not getting it. So we might get some crumbs after they've spent with all of those. So it's very difficult for black media to compete. It's extremely difficult, but we still have to do it. Forums like this is allowing me to get my messaging out. I'm not sitting on the panel at MSNBC. They ain't got me on CNN. I should be, because a lot of times they're just there saying their opinions, just talking, doing whatever. But it's really important that clear messages happen. Now we're post-election. I don't feel like we can sleep. I don't feel we can take a vacation. I don't feel we can take a rest. I feel we need to organize ourselves. My mission, right now, I've been reaching out to all of the public officials. I'm reaching out to the clergy. I'm trying to do interviews with them to find out, what do you think? What are our next steps? What should we do? What should our agendas do? I like the fact that the brother that's from Convent Avenue Baptist Church said we've been doing forums. This is very important. This is important what we're doing here today. Informational sessions. In our community, and I work in the schools, I'm probably jumping all around, but it's coming up. Half of our 17-year-olds don't know who the mayor is, don't know who Kamala Harris is, think that Mandela, well, maybe, was he a murderer? You know what I'm saying? They don't have the clear information, which says their parents don't have it. So this is what we have got to work on. It's very critical. A lot of our people are so overwhelmed with survival, they don't know what's going on, and they're thinking it doesn't matter anyway because I can't see how this is going to help me. So we've got to really change the paradigm. All of this is in messaging, and the media is definitely a messenger more now than it has ever been. So I have a few points. And first of all, I want to say, and we need to clap it up for her, that Kamala Harris was a winner. She's a winner. She's a winner. We're winners. The fact that she got the amount of popular votes that she got, the fact that she got the amount of electoral votes she got in this environment, and she did it in 3 months, that's a powerful thing. The fact that we organized ourselves, that we, like Dawn Jones and the National Action Network, were on the street registering people. The fact that Reverend Al Sharpton had the exonerated 5 on buses. The fact that different state organizations started out of Win with Black Women. There's a New York State division. People were working and doing the work like they haven't done before. But it wasn't enough. We understand where we are, what we're living in, what it is. So one of the things, as we're speaking about, because there's been a lot of debates about Democratic versus Republican, or are we dealing with parties, or are we dealing with policy? So that's something that we've got to seriously look at. I think that the Democratic Party failed to engage Black media. That was a mistake, because there was messaging that they couldn't get out. They didn't engage a lot of the Black PR companies. And they also really didn't reach a lot of the grassroots people. And this is a problem. When we were talking about the battleground states versus the non-battleground states, supposedly New York was not a battleground state. But it really was, because there are congressmen people that we needed to put in. Money needed to be spent here. You know, the other candidate was up in the South Bronx. The other candidate was in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Even though, you know, that was a battleground, but he was in our communities, rolling up in Rolls Royces, handing out MAGA hats, and talking to the folks on the street, buying Chick-fil-A for people. You know, and all of those are optics. Those are optics, but we needed to be about the optics. That's in my view. You know, we needed to be, Kamala Harris needed to be here in Harlem. That was an optic. You know, he was in Madison Square Garden. So these are from a media perspective, how you shift, how you handshake, how you check with the people. It's a very, very important thing. You know, and I believe that it was realized at the end of the campaign, when the whole thing came up about the Black man and this, that, and the other, you know, but there's a lot of things to look at. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but I'm just saying, in order to move forward, we got to look at what we did, how we're doing it, and then figure out how to do it next time. Very, very important. The Muslim community, you can't close your eyes. You got to go talk to them, you got to meet with them, you got to listen to what they got to say. And we can't, you know, even though I feel that Kamala Harris was in a very, you know, precarious position because she's the vice president and she's running for office. But we cannot act like there's not a war going on in Gaza and that there wasn't genocide happening. You got to address it, because that was a factor for many, many people. So I'm not judging, but I'm raising issues, and these are real issues. But the election for right now, we believe is over, though we know that it has to be ratified, we know that it has to be certified. So it's not really official yet, but I think it's very important that we begin to develop, what is our Black agenda? What is it that we need? Where's our list? And even though I don't think we just sit, in my opinion, and wait out 4 years. You know, this person that is the president basically works for us. We pay the salary. So I believe that we should come together, formulate our agenda, and make our demands to that president-elect. This is what we want. I'm not saying that we do trade in places, like if he give us this, then we're gonna do that. No, we need to come strong because enough people voted for the other side. And our public officials must all be held accountable. All the public officials, to me, right now, should be speaking to us, should be all getting together and figuring out, and the clergy, how do we get this agenda? What is it? What can we do? You know, this is just, to me, a practical situation. Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, as we put out a lot of energy, effort, voting, the question is, do you want to, even though you were not elected president, do you want to be the leader of all of what we're putting together and the demands that we're making? But it has to happen. I'm not sure how it can happen, but I know that this is something we should be talking about. Nobody should be on vacation right now. We can't afford to. The other people are not sleeping. They've been working on this 2025 for 10 years. They were working on what the financial impact was going to be after the election, and they're all, I don't know how much richer. You know, some of us, you know, may have come up a little bit. If we had a little bit in that crypto, you know, it might have doubled for us, but that's not the majority of us. So we have to understand the world that we are living in. And we have to address, finally, all of our systems. Education, Central Harlem, we need reparations. We need an infusion. Most of our schools do not have computers. How is that in 2024? Okay, we have more of, and this is real talk when we start to get to the states or whatever, but we have more of the asylum seeker, quote, people, the children, coming to our schools. They're coming from the Roosevelt Hotel downtown to Harlem. And there aren't really the services for them. A lot of them are not speaking the language, and they may not even be reading the language that they speak. And the languages range, just so that you know, they're ranging from Spanish to French to Haitian Patois to Bambara to Fulani to Arabic. You know, that's what you're dealing with. So if we don't educate the children that are here, what are we dealing with? We're going to have a huge problem, and everybody's going to be having a problem. We need funding for our small businesses. There is money, but somehow it's not getting to us, even with the empowerment zone. Most of that money never has gotten to Black-owned Harlem businesses. You know, it just hasn't. So we have a lot of things to address, but the first thing is to be educated, and that's some of what's happening here. And the mission is to be informed, to engage, and to be called to action. Okay, that's the mission of our Harlem Network News, and that really has to be the mission of the people. You know, I don't know, we know that we've heard of the 2025 with the president-elect. We don't know if it's all really going to happen or it's not going to happen, you know, because it's that kind of like floaty world. But we need to pay attention, and what we do know is we basically are economically deprived in our community. So to be doing all the things that we're doing, which we have been doing, and we always have been doing it, You know, since they came and enslaved us, we've always been doing it. So we have to stand up, but we've got to ask for what is ours. We have to ask for it. We're paying for it. In our taxes, we're paying more than everybody else. So we've got to ask for that. And I want to just close with saying that DEI has helped us, but it hasn't helped us enough, and that we need real and true reparations. Follow Harlem Network News. We're on every week, usually on Sundays, but sometimes like 3 times a week. We have a YouTube channel. We need you to subscribe. We need you to donate because it would help us to do more. If you have connections that can support Black media, this whole media thing is very, very, very critical. We've got to get on top of that so that we can truly get our messages out and make sure people are informed. And we cannot, when it comes to elections, be, and I heard someone share this, we can't be elitist. We can't only be dealing with the people in church or in the fraternity, or we can't only be dealing with who understands this or that. You got to get on the ground. You got to roll up your sleeves. You got to get to the young. You got to get to the old. It's very, very, very important. And right now, most of it is in the messaging. So I just want to say Black media really matters. And I'm grateful for being able to speak and get some of the messaging out. We can't be silent. And all of our public officials, when it's voting time, we're going out there, we're voting. We got to get on top of the fact that there's judges on the list to vote. We don't even know who they are. Most people were very confused about the things on the back of the ballot. Like, you know, we got some time, but not a lot of time. We have a mayoral election coming up. You know, we got to look at what's really happening and not the optics. You know, what has Mayor Eric Adams done? We got to look at what is the record, okay? Because there's a whole smoke screen of whatever else is happening, but we have to look at what is the real record. And right now, as he is the mayor, if things are happening that we don't like, we need to let him know. Make him accountable. But let's make these public officials accountable. Like, we can't just vote for them and then nothing is really happening that we need, and we are suffering in silence. We acting like we're okay. We're not okay. We are not okay. You know, I just say a show of hands is, who's okay in here? Who's perfectly fine? You know what I'm saying? We're not. And this is impactful to us, our children. So that's what I can say. And I'm grateful to be able to share these things, and I implore us to put together an agenda. You know, this is may not have been your choice, but that's who's there. You know, in the past, of all of our leaders, from Dr. King to Malcolm X to everybody else, to Adam Clayton Powell, to all, it might not have been their choice, but they still went with the agenda and they still pushed for what was needed. So that is what we have to do. Okay, we've had a minute to, you know, lament or figure it out, but we got to stand up. And the same energy that we had when we were thinking that Kamala Harris was going to win, we were addressing that. Let's not forget about Africa, what's going on over there in the Sudan and all the other places that get no media attention, where there's probably as much genocide happening and trying to take the minerals and the riches. So let's really pay attention, and you know, just know that Israel has to be dealt with. You know, the United Nations is trying to deal with them. We can't turn a blind eye. We can't act like it's okay. You know, we can't. And if things go way out of whack, which they're already, you know, and we know, and I'm not pulling the Hitler card, but that's what happened in Germany. Like, people didn't say anything. They weren't thinking that this was really gonna happen. And however time later. So we've got to really pay attention. We have a job. You know, I agree with, we have our black job, let's do it. So, thank you.
Hey. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll let Dawn do her questions.
Let's give another round of applause to Terry Wisdom. Before we go to question and answers, because we need to be out the door by 4:00 p.m. Remember Reverend Sharpton said we have to be home in time for Politics Nation, okay? So we need to have brief questions, but before we go to the question and answer, I just want to recognize that additional speakers that I reached out to, because they work with us with our voter registration. Terry and Mr. Ruby were right there with us on 116th Street. They probably didn't even plan to be there, but they saw us there and came out. But Diane Burrows of the League of Women Voters, they're doing something similar to this, where it's a thank you to everyone that did voter registration, but they supplied us with National Voter Registration Day with constitutions that we gave out here in front of the House of Justice and West 116th Street. Rose Pierre of the Links Incorporated, Dominique Sharpton is a member, and she's the one who asked us, who invited us to West 116th, where we registered hundreds of voters. I don't have exact numbers, but there's a lot of folks that are newcomers to the neighborhood. She's a former Manhattan Borough president. Ashley Sharpton and the Nan Youth Huddle was out there with us, and the Convent Avenue Baptist Church Social Justice Ministry members came out, which I'm currently heading. We're not going to do our 50-50 raffle today because I must have left the raffles in my bag at home, but we will definitely do it next month at our Kwanzaa celebration. Our fourth Saturday monthly meeting will be a Kwanzaa celebration that we do each and every year. I've had a couple of people ask. We will have vendor tables. The tables will be $25 for members, $35 for non-members. And lastly, they're looking to create a permanent place in Bedford-Stuyvesant for El Malik Shabazz, aka Malcolm X, to honor his 100th birthday on May 19th of 2025. The official name of the A-Train subway station will be changed to Utica Avenue and Malcolm X Boulevard. Currently, Malcolm X Boulevard is from Broadway to Fulton Street. They want to change Utica Avenue from Fulton Street up to Eastern Parkway, creating a Malcolm X Boulevard North and a Malcolm Boulevard South, bisected by Fulton Street. And third, erecting a statue in the plaza across from Boys and Girls High School at the intersection of Malcolm X Boulevard and Fulton Street. So you can email the committee at bkmalcolmx100@gmail.com for further information to help. If anyone from our committee would sign, this is not the official petition, but this is something to sign if you would be in support of the project. We have the forms back there at the table as you leave, and this is from Jeffrey Kazimbe Bates, who is a former employee here at the House of Justice. I'm not going to go into the legislation that we're working on, but I will say that we're looking to do in February a forum on reparations. And then in January, we'll plan our calendar for the year. I heard a couple of points that Terry raised, but as you remember, our late member Beverly Alston, she actually worked in the Shirley Chisholm building. She was one of the founders of National Action Network, along with Dr. Ramona Whaley and Teresa Freeman, as we're remembering some of those who have transitioned from labor to reward. Reverend McHenry is going to come out and close us out, but I'm going to turn it over to Herman Francis. He's here now to close us out with our affirmation, and then we will go to a couple of question and answer, because I think we have one panelist left here, but he's going to close us out now and remind us of our DEI. I am off on December 12th, so I'm going to make every effort to be. I think that'll be my fourth one I made this year. Reverend McHenry?
So just as an announcement, as we continue to fight for the Daniel Penny trial, we will be there on Monday and Tuesday this week. If you are coming to pack the court, come at 8:30. We are not doing a demonstration. There will be no demonstration. We will be just, again, watching the trial at 8:30. Again, that's on Monday and Tuesday. I believe that on Tuesday, a verdict will be rendered. As Dawn Jones said, we will continue our DEI fight this Thursday. I'll see you there in front of Bill Ackman's office. So if we can all stand up as we close out, right?
Yes, so we're gonna have you close out, then we're gonna do a few questions.
Okay, so we are an African people. Robbed of our names. Robbed of our language. Robbed of our self-respect. But up we shall rise. Never to fall again. Up, you mighty race. We can accomplish what we will. No justice, no peace. All right, back into the hands of Herman Francis.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take a few questions, but remember, we have to be out the door by 4 o'clock. We do still have 2 panelists here. If I can ask them to come to the table as we do our question and answers, and then we'll close out with May the Lord officially. And don't forget our Saturday action rallies each and every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. And we're also on Impact Television.
Terry Wisdom. Please, I don't want you to. Terry Wisdom. There's a saying, we save the best for last. And I want you to know that I went Shanda Mahaya. I've been to church watching you because you laid it out. I've been saying that we need a black agenda since before Thanksgiving. And every time I mention that, you got these Uncle Toms telling me, oh, what's a black agenda? Because if we need a black agenda, then the gays are going to have an agenda, and the whites need an agenda. We don't need our own agenda. But you know what? I'm going to hold my head high, and I'm going to keep moving. Because the only way we're going to make it in this cracker system is by recognizing that we got to stick together. Because this system, she took me to church. She took me to church. Thank you, Sister Wisdom.
Thank you for your comment.
You said we need a black agenda. Where is it going to start? It's because the same information that you give us, that you just gave tonight, Dr. Reverend Al Sharpton has been doing it, Martin Luther King, even with people that says, when I was in school, they taught us the word white. That's what they taught me as my sister used to say to me and my nephew. Why you always use white? That's what they taught me. They taught me white people. I knew about my black community, but that's what they taught us in school. White people. I don't know how to pronounce the word. I don't know how to spell the word Caucasian or any words that come towards me because my education is not as high as somebody else's education, like his. Mine, I'm on a different level of learning, and that's what I have learned. But we got to do it now. Our black, where is our black, like Harvard is a black-owned bank?
No.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
No.
Where's our banks?
I just want to know, do you think that we should include some of our independent parties when it comes to talking about politics because I'm an independent, and I have worked with Dr. Fulani. She has sponsored me at a workshop she was doing at NYU. And just for people to know, Lenora Branch Fulani, she ran for president in 1950, and she was the first African American to appear.
A statement to make. I appreciate the fact that you brought up about economics, and for years it's been a problem that the Democratic Party has not been funding the grassroots element, and from listening to the news constantly, whether it's MSNBC, Roland Martin, they were saying they was getting funded, but apparently that's a whole lot of misinformation or disinformation that come from you. Now, I understand that, who was named Jamie Harrison, he was the chair of the Democratic Party. We got to hold him accountable and everybody else accountable, because you shouldn't have never been in a position where you had to spend out of your own pocket, particularly if you supporting the cause for Kamala Harris. And that's a damn shame, and that hurts me very much. We need to speak out against it. Moreover, from canvassing and checking out some people, I understand that there was some agent provocateurs that was actually supporting that racist white boy Donald Trump that had their hand in the Democratic, when they was getting money and misrepresenting the vote, because, again, based upon listening to the news and the canvas and other things, we was under the impression that we should have won North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. But we had a problem also, I would point out, with that wasn't brought up about Jill Stein. I believe she's an agent provocateur as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Black people didn't vote.
Why didn't you shut him off? How did the Jet magazine and the Black Entertainment kind of disappear? And did you know that Frederick Douglass Jr. with Victoria Woodhull ran for president with the Civil Rights Party in 1872?
All right. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you so much for what you have to share. I think this information is super important. You know, my only concern is that we're getting this information, I'm sure we all know, late, right? So how can we going forward, set up maybe monthly sort of forums such as this, where we're now educating our people, right, on a regular basis, so that we can be prepared next time, if there even is a next time, based on what's happening with this 2025.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
If there is a next time.
Please, Sister Wisdom, this is my question to you. On the Seneca Reservation, you said something about a ship landed there with the Amistad instead?
Yeah. Yeah, what I was saying is the actual Amistad boat that you saw the movie about, that boat actually was in Montauk Point, which is at the end of the island. And so, all of that, you know, some of the people that escaped and so on and so forth were in like Sag Harbor. There were also black whalers out there, you know, doing the whaling. There's the Sag Harbor Whaling Museum. But the Shinnecock Nation, like many of the other indigenous nations, helped the black people. They hid them among themselves. There are churches out there where the pulpit moves. So, you know, this is also a part of our history, you know, that we should know. And a lot of people don't even know that there is a reservation right out there, you know, who just 10 years ago got their official status.
Do you know where any enslaved people escaped to find freedom there or became a part of their reservation, African American research?
are mixed with black. And I'm saying that in the histories, that's how that happened.
You can acquire a list of names or something somewhere in the vicinity on the people that lived on the Seneca Reservation?
Yeah, the people are living there right now.
There's
They're
no
living,
history of past.
yeah, they're living, the Shinnecock Reservation exists. It's full and strong. In fact, my grandchildren live on the Shinnecock Reservation. My son-in-law is Shinnecock. You know, my daughter, but you can't really be traced because her great-grandmother died in childbirth. So we have to really know our history and know what it was. But it's in their tribal documentation of all of the people that they hid and they helped. That happened all across the country. You know, black people were getting mixed in with the natives, and the native people, because we had similar spiritual, cultural things, helped them, hid them among themselves.
There was no census. You know, there was a census ever taken on the reservation?
Yeah, I mean, there is information, and it's just like,
There's
as
documents,
she's speaking.
yeah,
Yes.
documents at the New York City Archives, the municipal archives documents it. It was part of what is called Long Island, Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk. A lot of it is at the Center for Brooklyn History. There's an exhibit coming up in January of the Center for Brooklyn History that features a woman who had a document saying that she could move freely throughout New York City, and it mentions her being an Indian. Her descendants now identify as being Black Americans or African Americans, but the history is there. What we were saying, the documents are not where you might think you could find them, but the documents can be found, and they're in repositories throughout New York City. There are some that have been digitized, so it starts with you going backwards in your history, and you have to be intentional about what you're looking for. So there's the history of the Shinnecock, and the Shinnecock are alive and well today as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more question. Brother Smith.
Excuse me?
Brother Smith. Hey, Beth? Okay, there was one question about mulattoes from the census. Like say, my family were colored and Negroes, but my grandparents were mulattoes.
It depends on what happened was with each census year. So the first census that African Americans or Black Americans would be found on, name by name, would be 1870, and then 1880, 1890 was totally destroyed, 1900, 1910, and instructions were given to the enumerators with each census, and that determined how you would be classified. So you have people who were Native American, people who were Indian, that were classified as mulatto. You had people who were Black who were not mulatto. Mulatto is a term that traditionally means one white parent, one Black parent, but people in my family that we know for sure, my great-grandmother was listed as a mulatto. We knew both of her parents, and they were both Black. They were just both very light-skinned Black people, so it depended on how the enumerators were charged with each individual census. And then you take just a collection of the evidence that you have, and you see what ends up being the truth.
I want to say to you guys, I want to thank God for you and your families for y'all being present here today. And what I'm asking of you, that don't let this be the last time you come to National Network. We need you. You are phenomenal women and men of God. And I ask God to put a hedge of protection around you and bless everything you touch and do from this day forth. But please come back to National Action Network with the information and resources so that we can work with you and be there for you together, because we are together in this fight. Amen. And God bless you and stay well.
Okay, yes. As a former school board member in Bronx County before Bloomberg came in, Bloomberg was closed. Regionally, Sanford O said that as part of the state curriculum to a school on Black history and so forth. And also, one question is, when I listen to the radio, particularly on the stations, they keep on coming with this slogan, "Make America Great Again." Now, I'm asking to get you and call into one of the following shows and ask the question to please explain to you. I'm still waiting for an answer. World War II, and my grandfather World War I. And what period of time are they talking about making America great again? Are they? Because I know about Executive Order 9981. To the initiative act, for those who are not informed, Executive Order 9981 was signed into effect by President Harris to July 26, 1948, desegregating the U.S. military, which is a big factor in what they call the United States of North America. And yet one has failed to answer that particular question.
I think that, in my opinion, when they're saying make America great again, they're talking about make it great for them.
Yes.
That's really what
And that's only what it is.
Yeah.
Here.
It means make it great.
Why they get?
1790.
And that
Taking us
was
back to
16,
1790.
19, that's what that is. So we have to be very mindful, because they're not saying make it equitable for everybody.
Yeah.
They're not saying all men are born, they're not saying all women, they're not saying any of that. And that's what that is, and we know and we don't know the trajectory of what has happened. You know, because like I said, when slavery first, or enslavement first ended, we were in all kinds of governmental positions. You know, there was a documentary on Channel 13 called The Coup, where we were in all kinds of things, and they ran us out. We never got our 40 acres in a region. We never got our land. We know that white people got land, they got money to do their farming. I think blacks just got some, you know. So we know that there were a lot of inequities. Now we're in the prison industrial complex. They're making money off of us.
Yes.
You know, Victoria's Secrets, people get 50 cents a day to make that in jail. You know, so there are a lot of things. And the elder that spoke about talking about the money, I just want to say, when I was saying them, it's about economics, but I want to really say that we know that it's about faith, it's about hope, and we are those faithful, hopeful people, or we would not be here making a way out of no way. So I didn't want to say it like it's all about money like that, but I'm just saying that we need to keep our eyes open to how they're doing. So that's it.
Thank you.
Sister, this sister back here feels jolted because you didn't answer her question.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
She didn't.
I just want you all to answer the question.
She wants you to answer her question.
This is it. She's gonna have to wait till another time because we have to end it.
So why you ask the question but you didn't answer?
We have to end it.
Did you hear what I just said?
I heard what you said, but we have to end
I
it.
didn't ask the question.
I don't care who asked it, but we have to end it.
Talk to her in the back. I didn't really
Yeah, I
hear the
told
question,
her.
and I'm not the moderator.
I told
so-
Sister Wisdom. I told her you
Yeah.
to talk to her.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but we
Thank you.
This concludes our forum. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I thank you so much for being here and representing us. And again, everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.